What do you do when you are shopping for your daughter's wedding gift, and an unknown number warns you to turn back right now? How do you stay calm when you call back and hear your own family talking like you are just a wallet with legs? Why would someone warn me unless they knew something I didn't? My name is Grant Keller. I am 49 years old. I work with systems and details. I fix problems for a living. At home, I try to keep things quiet and steady. People often think that means I will accept anything. That morning started like most mornings. I made coffee in my kitchen and looked at my calendar. The wedding date was getting close. My daughter, Lila, was getting married soon. I kept telling myself to stay focused on what mattered. Lila was my only child. I raised her with routine and calm. I wanted her wedding to feel safe. I had already paid for several things. I did it without making a scene. When Lila asked for help, I said yes. When the venue needed a deposit, I handled it. When the photographer asked for a schedule change, I adjusted my work hours. I did not complain. Still, I felt like I was being moved to the side. The group chat had been busy all week. Most messages were not aimed at me. They were aimed at Oren, Lila's fiancé, and his parents. I would see long chains of messages about colors, seating, menus, and guest lists. If I asked a question, someone answered hours later. Sometimes no one answered at all. That morning, I saw a message about gifts. It was not written for me. It was written like a general announcement. It said the families should bring meaningful items for the couple, something to help them start their life. It also mentioned that the engagement ring store at the mall had a discount for wedding parties. I stared at my phone for a moment. I already knew Oren had chosen the ring. That was his story. He told it loudly in front of people, more than once. Still, the message made me think. I had planned to give Lila something personal, not big, not flashy, something that said I saw her and understood her. For a long time, I could not decide what. I kept looking at options and closing the tabs on my laptop. I wanted it to be right, so I decided to go to the mall. I told myself it was simple. I would walk in, choose something small, pay, and walk out. I would not get pulled into drama. I would not argue about wedding planning. I would just buy a gift from a father to his daughter. I drove with the radio off. I do that when I need to think. The sky was gray and the roads were wet. I kept both hands on the wheel. I noticed how my mind kept returning to the same thought. I wondered if Lila still saw me as her father or as a resource. That thought felt heavy, but I did not push it away. I let it sit there. I have learned that when something keeps repeating, it is usually trying to tell you something. At the mall, I parked in the garage and walked inside. The air smelled like perfume and baked sugar. The floor was clean enough to reflect the ceiling lights. People moved in lines, holding bags and cups. It was loud in a soft way, like constant talking in the distance. I went straight to the jewelry store mentioned in the message. I did not even know if that store was the right one. I just wanted to start somewhere. Inside, the lights were bright and sharp. Glass cases lined the room. A young associate greeted me with a polite smile. She asked if I was shopping for something special. I told her I was looking for a wedding gift for my daughter. Her face shifted, just a little. Not rude, just informed. She asked if I was part of the wedding party for the Pike wedding. She said the store had already had a few visits connected to that event. I felt my stomach tighten. I did not ask how she knew. I did not ask who had come in. I simply said yes and asked to see simple pieces, nothing dramatic. I asked for items that would last, not items meant to show off. She brought a tray. I looked at each piece carefully. I tried to picture Lila wearing it in 10 years, not only on wedding day. While I was looking, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I almost ignored it. That is my habit. I do not like checking my phone in the middle of a conversation, but the buzzing came again. Then again, short bursts, like someone trying to get through. I apologized to the associate and stepped a few feet away. I pulled out my phone. It was a message from an unknown number. The message was short. It told me not to go. It told me to turn back now. I stared at the screen. My first thought was that it was a mistake, a wrong number, a prank. But something about it felt different. It did not look like a joke. It looked urgent. It looked like someone had typed it quickly with shaking hands. I looked around the store. No one was watching me. People were shopping. The associate was still standing by the glass case, waiting with patient eyes. My phone buzzed again. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. Another message came in from the same number. It said I needed to leave before I got cornered. Cornered. That word hit me in a place that was hard to name. I have been in tight situations before, not in the way people imagine from movies. More like meetings where everyone wants you to say yes. More like rooms where one person speaks for everyone, and the rest stare at you until you nod. I do not like being pushed. I have always been calm, but calm does not mean soft. I stepped out of the store and into the wider mall walkway. I leaned against the wall near a pillar, away from foot traffic. Then I did something I almost never do. I called the number. It rang once, then it connected. I expected a voice. I expected someone to say my name, but I did not hear a greeting. I heard muffled sound, like a phone inside a pocket or under fabric. I could hear movement, a door, the clink of something metal, the low hum of a car. Then I heard voices. At first, I could not tell who they were. The sound was not clear. But the longer I listened, the more my brain filled in the details. I recognized the rhythm of one voice. I recognized the way it paused, the way it pushed through sentences. It was Oren. I felt my throat go dry. Then I heard another voice, softer, tired. The voice had a small catch in it, like a person trying to agree without fully agreeing. It was Lila. My hand tightened around the phone. My eyes stayed fixed on the floor tiles. People walked past me. A child laughed near a kiosk. Someone bumped my shoulder and said, "Sorry." I did not react. The voices continued. It was not a normal call. It sounded like the phone owner did not know the call had connected. I could hear more than two people at times, like a third voice joining in and then fading out. I listened. I did not want to, but I could not stop. They were talking about the meeting later that day. They were talking about getting me to sign something quickly. They were talking about how to frame it so I would not ask questions. They were talking about how I worried too much and how I needed to be guided like a child. Then I heard something else. I heard them talk about my role in the wedding like it was optional, like I was not the father of the bride, but an item on a checklist. They talked about how the wedding would look better if the story focused on Oren's family. They talked about how to keep me quiet so the day would stay smooth. I could hear someone say that I would not cause trouble if everyone kept smiling at me. I could hear someone say that I always paid in the end anyway. I did not hear hate in their voices. That was the strange part. I heard confidence. I heard certainty. Like this was normal. Like using me was not even a moral choice. It was just the plan. My stomach dropped. Not from surprise, exactly. More from recognition. For months, I had been feeling something I could not fully explain. A slow shift, a steady slide, the feeling that I was being moved out of the frame of my own family. Now I was hearing the words behind that feeling. My breathing stayed slow. I forced it to stay slow. I did not want to react from emotion. I wanted to understand. A few seconds later, the audio changed. A car door closed. The voices got more distant. Then the line went silent. I did not say anything. I did not try to speak into the call. I simply ended it. I stood there for a moment with the phone still in my hand. My face felt warm. My ears felt full. Like the mall sounds were far away, behind glass. I walked back into the jewelry store. The associate looked up and asked if I was okay. I told her I was fine. I told her I would come back later. She nodded. Her smile stayed polite, but her eyes showed something else. She looked like someone who had seen a lot of family tension before and knew not to ask. I left the store. I did not rush. I did not run. I walked to the garage like a man finishing an errand. But inside, my thoughts were moving fast. I got into my car and closed the door. The garage was cooler than the mall. The air smelled like concrete and exhaust. My hands rested on the steering wheel, and I stared straight ahead. I replayed what I heard, not word for word, more like the shape of it, the tone, the intention. Then my phone buzzed again. The unknown number sent another message. It said the call was not meant for me, but I needed to hear it. It said they were planning to pressure me in front of people. It said they expected me to feel embarrassed and give in. I did not reply right away. My mind went to a simple question. Who was this? The number did not have a name attached. No contact card, no photo. Just digits and a warning. I typed a short response asking who it was. Then I deleted it. Then I typed again. Then I deleted it again. I have learned that when you do not know the full situation, it is better to listen than to speak. So I did not answer. I sat in my car and looked at the mall entrance across the garage. People came and went. A man carried shopping bags and talked on his phone. A couple argued quietly near an elevator. A woman pushed a stroller with a tired face. Normal life, normal movement. And in the middle of that normal movement, my family was planning to steer me like furniture. I thought about the wedding gift. I thought about how I had walked into that store trying to do something pure and simple. I thought about how quickly it turned into this. A wave of sadness rose in me, but it did not break me. It stayed contained, like water behind a wall. I did not cry. I did not shake. I just felt it. I thought about Lila as a child. I remembered her small hand in mine when she learned to cross the street. I remembered how she used to look back at me to make sure I was still there. I remembered how she would fall asleep on the couch with her school book open on her chest. Now she was an adult. She was making choices, and those choices were shaping what our relationship would be. My phone buzzed again. Another message from the unknown number appeared. It said I should not sign anything today. It said there was a reason they were pushing me to do it fast. It said they were counting on my desire to keep the peace. I read it twice. Then I did something small but important. I turned off the radio. I turned off the car's screen. I put the phone face down on the passenger seat. I sat with silence. In that silence, I made a quiet decision. Not a big promise, not a dramatic vow, just a clear step in my mind. I would not be pushed in front of people. If someone wanted my agreement, they would have to earn it with honesty. If someone wanted my support, they would have to treat me with basic respect. I started the car. I drove out of the garage slowly. As I left the mall behind, I did not feel anger. I felt clarity. And clarity can be more powerful than anger, because clarity does not burn out. It does not shout. It does not rush. It simply moves forward. When I got home from the mall, I did not tell anyone what happened. I put my keys in the bowl by the door. I washed my hands. I made tea, even though I did not want tea. I did it because routine keeps my mind steady. My kitchen was quiet. The only sound was the refrigerator and the soft tick of the wall clock. I sat at the table and looked at my phone again. The unknown number had stopped texting for the moment. That silence felt heavy too. I kept thinking about the voices on that call, not just the words, the tone, the comfort they had while talking about me, like I was a tool they could pick up and put down. I told myself I needed to look at the bigger picture. A single call can be messy. People say things in private that they later regret. But my gut told me this was not a single bad moment. It was part of a pattern. That pattern did not start at the mall. It started months ago, when wedding planning became a stage and everyone wanted a role. Lila was always friendly with people. She liked harmony. When she was little, she would make peace between kids at school. She had a soft heart. She still does. That softness is part of why I am proud of her, but softness can also make someone easy to steer. When she met Oren, she seemed happy at first. She was bright in a way I had not seen in a while. She talked fast. She smiled at her phone. She started planning her future like it was a picture in her mind. I was glad for her. I wanted her to have a partner who saw her value. Oren knew how to make a first impression. He spoke smoothly. He made eye contact. He held doors. He praised Lila in public. He also liked to talk about himself. He talked about his job, his connections, his family's traditions. He spoke like his life was already a success story. At the beginning, I tried to stay open. I asked him simple questions. I listened. I did not challenge him. I did not want to be the father who looks for flaws just because he can. The first shift came when Oren's parents entered the picture, Brenda and Silas. They were polite on the surface. They smiled and used warm words. But their warmth had a direction. It flowed toward control. They invited us to dinner. Their home was large and carefully arranged. Everything matched, even the napkins. The table looked like a magazine photo. During that dinner, they talked about the wedding like it was an event they were hosting. They said they wanted something elegant. They said they wanted it to reflect family values. They said they had friends who expected quality. They spoke in a way that made everything sound reasonable, but also fixed. When I suggested a smaller wedding, Brenda responded with a soft laugh and said Lila deserved a big day. She said we should not limit her. She said people would travel for this, so it needed to be worth it. She did not say it directly, but the message was clear. Their standards were the standards. After that, planning moved fast. The group chat began. At first, I thought it was just a practical way to share updates, but it quickly became a place where decisions were announced, not discussed. They would pick a venue and then send me a message saying it was chosen. They would choose a caterer and then ask me later if I could cover an upgrade. They would schedule tastings and dress appointments during my work hours and then act surprised when I could not attend. I started seeing a strange rhythm. The details were handled without me. The costs came to me. I did not mind helping my daughter. I never did. But I began to feel like my presence was not wanted, only my support. There was one day that stayed in my mind. Lila called and asked if I could meet her to talk about the budget. She sounded tense, like she had been holding her breath. I drove to her apartment and sat on her couch while she paced with her phone in her hand. She said the venue had rules and timelines. She said the Pikes were worried about deposits. She said Oren was stressed. She said she needed me to help smooth it out. I asked what smooth it out meant. She said she needed me to pay a larger portion now so the planning could continue without delays. She said it would all be counted later, and it would be fair. I told her I needed to see the numbers first. I said I wanted a clear list. What was already paid, what was owed, and what was optional. I kept my voice calm. I kept it simple. Lila's face tightened. She said Oren's parents did not like when people made things complicated. She said they believed families should trust each other. She said if I questioned them, it would cause tension. That was the first time I felt a direct push. Not from Oren's parents, but from my own daughter. It was not loud, it was gentle pressure, but it was pressure all the same. I told her I understood and I would think about it. I did not argue. I did not raise my voice. I left her apartment feeling like the room had become smaller while I was inside it. Later that week, I had dinner with my ex, Tessa. We have been divorced for years. We are not close, but we still share a daughter, and wedding planning pulled us into the same orbit again. Tessa asked me how I felt about the wedding. I said I wanted Lila to be happy. I said I wanted things to be respectful. I did not mention the money. I did not want to turn it into a complaint. Tessa said Oren was ambitious, and that ambition was good. She said stability mattered. She said the Pikes were the kind of family that gets things done. She said I should not stand in the way of that momentum. I heard the message under her words, too. She saw the wedding as a ladder. She wanted Lila to climb it. If I was a slow step, I was a problem. A few days after that, there was a dinner at an upscale restaurant. It was supposed to be a planning dinner. It was also clearly a performance. Brenda greeted everyone with a smile and acted like she was hosting. Silas spoke to the waiter like he owned the room. Oren sat beside Lila and kept his hand on her arm in a way that looked caring from a distance, but firm up close. I tried to keep it normal. I asked Lila about her work. I asked her how she was sleeping. I asked if she was eating well. She answered politely, but her eyes kept flicking to Oren like she needed approval. During the meal, Brenda brought up tradition. She said their family had certain ways of doing things. She said they had expectations for how the ceremony would flow. She said the father figure role had to look strong and smooth for the guests. She looked at me when she said it. Then she looked away quickly, like she was being graceful. Silas added that many guests would be important people. He said first impressions would matter. He said people would talk, and the story would travel. Oren then spoke about speeches. He said some speeches should be short because guests get bored. He said focus should be on the couple, not on long personal stories. He said the event needed to feel modern. I listened and nodded. I kept my face neutral. Inside, I felt like I was being told where to stand in a picture. At one point, Brenda mentioned that Oren's uncle knew a good photographer. She said he could make the wedding look high level. Then she added that it might be better if the photos focused on Oren's side, because they had more relatives coming and it would feel fuller. It sounded like a small comment. But it was not small. It was a statement about who belonged in the center. I looked at Lila. She did not correct it. She did not even react. She stared at her water glass and nodded slightly, as if she was already trained to accept these lines. That was when I began to understand something hard. This was not just about a wedding. It was about control and image. It was about who would be seen as the core family and who would be seen as an extra. After the restaurant dinner, the group chat got worse. There were more messages about deposits, upgrades, and timelines. My name appeared mostly when money was discussed. It felt like I was being tagged like a payment button. When I tried to ask about details, Oren responded fast, but not with answers. He responded with pressure. He said time was running out. He said the venue had strict deadlines. He said it was not the moment for debates. Lila started repeating his words. She did not say she agreed with him. She said he was stressed. She said his parents were stressed. She said everyone was stressed. She said I was the only one who could make things easy. Easy. That word followed me. It sat on my shoulders like a hand. I started noticing how often my role was framed as a service. Not as love, not as family, as service. That was the backstory that led to the mall. The mall was just the first moment where the curtain slipped and I heard the private version of the story. Sitting in my kitchen that night, I did not feel like a hero. I felt like a man who missed something obvious for too long. I felt embarrassed, but not in a loud way, more like a quiet sting that stays under the skin. I opened the group chat and scrolled slowly. I read the messages again with new eyes. I saw how decisions were announced. I saw how the pressure increased near deadlines. I saw how my questions were treated like obstacles. I set the phone down and looked out the window. The streetlight outside cast a pale rectangle onto my floor. Everything in my home looked normal. But I knew something had changed. I was done pretending that calm meant I had to accept being managed. I was still Lila's father. I was still a person. And I was not going to sign away my respect just to keep someone else comfortable. The next day, I went to the church hall for a wedding planning gathering. It was not a service. It was one of those organized evenings where people pretend it is casual, but everything is planned. Folding chairs were set in rows. A long table had cups, napkins, and trays of small snacks. A speaker played soft music that tried to make the room feel warm. I arrived on time. I wore a clean shirt and simple shoes. I did not want attention. I wanted to show up like a steady father. When I walked in, Brenda was already there, moving around like she owned the space. She greeted people with a bright voice and pointed them to their seats. Silas stood near the table and shook hands like he was making deals. Orrin moved through the room with easy confidence, touching shoulders, smiling, speaking fast. Lila saw me and waved. She looked tired, but she also looked trained to keep smiling. She came over and asked if I was doing okay. I told her I was fine and asked how she was feeling. She said everything was moving fast and she just wanted the day to be smooth. Her eyes darted toward Orrin before she finished that sentence like she needed the line to match his story. After a while, Brenda clapped her hands and said they needed to cover final details. People sat down. A few of Orrin's relatives took the front row. Brenda stood with a folder in her hands. She talked about the schedule, the music, and the order of speeches. She spoke in a calm voice, but she was not asking. She was telling. Then she brought up the father's part. She said the father's role should be short and simple. She said it needed to look polished. She said guests like a clean program, not long emotional moments. She looked at me when she said it, then looked away like she was doing me a favor. Orrin added that they wanted the focus to stay on the couple. He said they did not want anything awkward. He said it would be best if I followed their plan without changes. He said it with a smile, but the message was sharp. I nodded once and kept my face neutral. I did not argue. I did not want to fight in a room full of people, but I also did not agree to anything new. I just listened. Then the line was crossed. Brenda walked toward me with a sheet of paper and a pen. She said it was a simple approval. She said it was the final step before the venue could lock everything in. She said it was routine, and everyone else had already agreed. Lila stood beside her. Lila's hands were clasped tight in front of her. She told me it was just a quick form and asked me to please help. She said there was no time for delays. She said she needed me to trust her. I asked what the paper was. Brenda answered that it was about payments and responsibilities. Silas said it was standard. Orrin said it was nothing to worry about and that I always made things harder than needed. And I asked if I could take a moment to read it. I did not raise my voice. I did not accuse anyone. I asked as calmly as I would ask for a receipt in a store. Brenda's smile tightened. She said they were on a schedule and the meeting had other items. Silas said the wording was boring and it was not worth my time. Orrin said the paper did not change anything and that my hesitation was the real problem. I looked at Lila. I wanted her to say something simple, something like, "Let him read it." But she did not. She looked down, then looked up again and said they just needed this done. That moment told me more than the call did. The call was private talk. This was public pressure. This was a room full of people watching to see if I would comply. I held the pen, but I did not sign. I said I would not sign anything I had not read. I said if it was routine, it could wait 5 minutes. I said I was happy to support the wedding, but I needed clarity. Orrin's voice changed. He did not shout, but he leaned closer and spoke like he was correcting a child. He said I was making it about me. He said I was slowing everything down. He said Lila deserved better than this stress. Brenda added that the wedding was not the moment for negotiations. She said I should think of my daughter. Silas said there were other families who handled these things with trust and grace. I listened, then set the pen down on the table. I said I understood their feelings. I said I would review it properly and respond when I was ready. I said I was not refusing support. I was refusing pressure. A few people in the room went quiet. Some looked away. I noticed one older aunt from Orrin's side watching me with narrow eyes, like she had expected me to fold. I noticed a younger cousin glance at his phone, like he wanted to record something but did not. I noticed the church hall worker near the door pause with a stack of chairs in his hands, listening. Lila's face went pale. She asked me again, softer this time, to just sign so everyone could move on. I told her I loved her and I would talk with her later, in private. I kept my voice steady. I did not blame her in that room. Orrin stepped back and smiled at the group like the moment was already over. He told everyone they would handle it later. Brenda immediately shifted to the next agenda item, as if my refusal was a small glitch, but I could feel the change. The air in the room was different. The Pikes were used to control, they were used to agreement. My calm no did not fit their plan. After the meeting ended, people stood in small circles and chatted. I stayed near the back, close to the wall. I did not want to be pulled into more talk. I wanted to leave with my dignity intact. That was when Mara approached me. I knew Mara from years ago. She and Lila were close in school. Mara was the friend who spoke less, but noticed more. She had the kind of eyes that catch details other people miss. I had not seen her much lately. Oren's world did not seem to include people like her. Mara stood beside me and spoke quietly. She said she needed a minute. She said she had seen the way they were pressuring me. She said it was not the first time. I told her I had received a warning message. I did not say from who. I watched her face when I said it. Her eyes did not widen like a shocked person. They narrowed like a person confirming something. Mara said she had heard things from Lila during late-night calls. She said Lila sounded confused and tired. She said Lila kept repeating phrases that did not sound like her own words. Mara said she also heard Oren in the background sometimes, guiding what Lila said. I asked Mara why she was telling me now. She said she did not like seeing someone cornered in public. She said I seemed calm, but she could tell I was being pushed. She said she wanted me to have a fair chance to protect myself. I thanked her. I did not ask her to do anything else. I just listened. Then I left the hall. On the drive home, I did not feel angry. I felt clear. The line had been crossed in public, and it had shown me the whole structure. They were building a wedding story where I was useful but not respected. They were pushing me to sign something in front of witnesses to make refusal look selfish. I went to a coffee shop near downtown the next morning. I chose it because it was not near my home and not near Lila's place. It was neutral. I sat at a small table by the window and ordered a plain drink. I did not touch my phone for the first few minutes. I just watched people come and go. Mara arrived a few minutes later. She sat across from me and kept her voice low. She said she was the one who sent the warning. She said she had been worried I would walk into a setup. She said she had not known the best way to stop it, so she chose the fastest way. I told her I appreciated it. I asked how she knew about the plan. She said she had seen messages when Lila left her phone open one night. She said Lila was not hiding things on purpose. She said Lila was overwhelmed and not thinking clearly. Mara said she also heard Brenda talking at a family gathering, saying the father would fall in line because he always cared about peace. Hearing that did not hurt the way it would have before. It just confirmed what I already felt. Mara said there was something else. She said she had saved a few items because she did not trust the situation. She did not hand me anything at the table. She simply said she could show me later if I needed it. She said her goal was not to start drama, but to stop people from taking advantage of me. I asked Mara one simple question. I asked if she thought Lila understood what was happening. Mara paused. Then she said she thought Lila understood pieces, but not the full picture. She said Lila wanted approval from Oren's family. She said Lila was scared of being seen as difficult. Mara said Lila also believed love meant keeping things smooth. That sounded like my daughter. That was the painful part. Before Mara left, she told me I should speak to someone who understood rules and paperwork. She said Oren's family respected systems when it served them, and they feared systems when it did not. She said if I handled this the right way, I could stop the pressure without shouting. I told her I would think about it. I walked her to the door and thanked her again. When I got home, I went straight to my home office. It is a small room with a desk, a filing cabinet, and shelves. It is not fancy, but it is where I feel most like myself. Work taught me that messy problems become manageable when you sort them into clear parts. I opened my laptop. I created a folder with the wedding date as the name. Inside it, I created smaller folders by week. I did not do anything dramatic. I did not write threats. I simply organized. I copied the group chat messages into a safe place. I saved screenshots with the dates visible. I wrote down the times of the unknown texts. I wrote down what happened at the church hall, step by step, while it was still fresh in my mind. Then I opened my calendar and looked at the upcoming days. I saw the final walkthrough meeting mentioned in the group chat. I saw it was scheduled at the venue during work hours with a note that all decision-makers had to attend. I sat back in my chair and took a slow breath. That was my clarity moment. Not a rush of heat, not a dramatic change, just a calm understanding. They were going to push again. They were going to try to make me sign under pressure. They were going to use the wedding date like a timer, hoping I would panic and comply. I would not panic. I picked up my phone and searched for Nina Rios' number. I had met her years ago through a work contact. We were not close friends, but I trusted her mind. She was the kind of person who spoke in clear steps and did not get pulled into emotion. I called. It went to voicemail. I left a simple message. I said I needed advice about a family matter involving agreements and pressure. I said I wanted to handle it properly and quietly. I said I had dates and messages organized. When I ended the call, my hands were steady. I looked at the desk in front of me. The surface was clean. The room was silent. My home felt the same as it had yesterday. But I was not the same. I was done being guided by other people's urgency. I was done being pushed in public. And I was ready to use the systems they respected, even if they did not respect me. The morning after I called Nina, I kept my day normal on the outside. I went to work, I answered emails, I completed a report that was due by lunch. I spoke to people the same way I always do. Calm, direct, short sentences. Inside, I was not spinning anymore. I had moved into a different mode. When a system is being misused, you do not shout at the system. You document what happened, you check the rules, you make sure the right people see the right facts. Nina returned my call late in the afternoon. Her voice sounded steady, like she was already thinking 3 steps ahead. She said I should not sign anything under pressure. She said I should keep every message and note every date. She said I needed to separate emotion from proof. She also said something that stayed with me. She said some people only respect you when you have clear boundaries backed by process. She told me to do everything clean and boring, because boring is hard to argue with. That night, I sat in my home office with my laptop open and my phone beside it. I did not stare at old photos. I did not replay the call again. I focused on building a simple timeline. I wrote down the day of the mall warning. I wrote down the church hall meeting. I wrote down the moments where I was asked to approve things without details. I copied the group chat into a safe place. I saved screenshots with timestamps. I saved them twice, in 2 locations. I knew that if someone tried to rewrite the story later, I would need facts that did not move. The next morning, I went to my bank branch. I chose a time when it was usually quiet. I did not want to run into anyone I knew. I wore a plain jacket and kept my hands visible. I sat across from a banking specialist in a small glass office. I told her I wanted to review how wedding payments were being handled. I told her I wanted to make sure no one could approve anything without me. I did not blame anyone. I did not use heavy words. I said I wanted to reduce confusion and keep things clear. She asked a few questions and typed for a while. She explained what she could change and what I would need to confirm. I listened. I nodded. I asked her to repeat one part so I could be sure I understood. She gave me a small printout of changes I requested, but I did not study it there. I simply folded it and placed it in a plain envelope. I thanked her and left with the same calm face I walked in with. From the bank, I drove to a print and shipping store. The place smelled like paper and toner. I used one of the self-service machines and printed a few key pages from emails. I kept it simple: vendor confirmations, meeting notices, a few screenshots that showed pressure language. Nothing dramatic, just a record. I put the pages in a folder and labeled it with the wedding date. I did not write angry notes on the pages. I did not add commentary. I wanted the facts to speak without my emotions standing in front of them. On my way home, my phone buzzed with new messages from the group chat. Brenda wrote that the final walkthrough meeting was confirmed and that everyone needed to be on the same page. Silas added that time was limited and that delays would affect the whole event. Oren wrote that they needed quick cooperation and that questions could be handled after the wedding. Lila sent a short message asking if I could please just help because she was tired. I read the messages once, then again. I noticed how the words were shaped. Everything was framed as urgency. Everything was framed as my duty. No one asked what I needed. No one offered clarity. They only offered pressure and smiles. I replied to Lila only. I told her I loved her. I told her I wanted her wedding to go well. I also told her I would not sign anything without reading it and understanding it. I said I would be present at the walkthrough and I would handle things in a proper way. I kept it short. I did not argue with Oren in the group chat. I did not speak to Brenda or Silas at all. That evening, Nina asked me to meet her in a neutral place. She suggested the lobby bar of a business hotel because it was quiet and public. I agreed. When I arrived, the place looked clean and soft. Low lights, simple music, people talking in low voices. I sat in a corner where I could see the entrance. Nina arrived with a small notebook and a calm expression. She did not bring a stack of papers. She did not announce anything. She asked me to explain what happened, step by step. I did. I told her about the call, the public pressure, and the repeated use of urgency. I told her how they pushed for signatures in front of others. I told her I felt like they were trying to lock me into responsibility without transparency. Nina listened without interrupting. Then she asked questions that sounded simple but were sharp. She asked whose name was on the venue agreement. She asked who authorized payments. She asked whether any vendor had written language about changes. She asked whether my daughter had signed anything that tied me to future costs. She asked whether anyone had access to my accounts or cards. When I did not know an answer, she told me to find it. When I did know an answer, she told me to write it down. She also told me to keep my posture calm. She said if I looked angry, they would call me difficult. She said if I looked unsure, they would push harder. She said the best position was calm certainty, supported by clear records. She told me to avoid long conversations in private with Oren's parents. She said pressure works best when there are no witnesses and no structure. She said I should keep key discussions to settings where rules matter. I asked her what I should do about Lila. Nina paused, then said something careful. She said my daughter might still be reachable, but I should not try to win her with emotion right now. She said I should focus on clarity and boundaries. She said when a person is under pressure, they often choose the path that looks easiest in the moment. She told me to make the honest path easier by removing confusion. When I left the hotel, I felt lighter, not because the problem was gone, because I had a direction. I drove home in silence again, but it was not the same silence as the mall. It was structured silence. It was the silence of a plan forming. Over the next few days, I stayed quiet and consistent. I requested copies of vendor invoices by email. I asked the venue for the walkthrough agenda and who was expected to attend. I did not accuse anyone. I used polite language. I framed it as organization. I asked for confirmation in writing. Most people replied like professionals. A few responses came back strangely vague, like someone did not want a clear paper trail. Those vague replies told me a lot. During that time, the Pikes became more confident. They sent messages that sounded like final decisions. Brenda wrote that she had chosen upgraded seating and that it would reflect well on everyone. Silas wrote that deposits needed to be handled immediately to protect the event. Orrin wrote that the family should stop worrying and simply follow the plan. He also wrote more than once that I was the one holding things back. I did not respond to him. I saved the messages. Lila called me one evening. Her voice was shaky. She said Orrin was upset and that his parents thought I was trying to control things. She said she did not want conflict. She said she wanted her wedding to feel joyful. I told her I understood. I told her I was not trying to control her wedding. I told her I was trying to understand what I was being asked to approve. I told her a father can support his daughter and still need clarity. I said I wanted to meet her in person, alone, to talk calmly. We met at a small coffee shop. Lila looked tired. Her eyes had shadows under them. She kept her phone face down on the table like it was a weight. I told her I was proud of her. I told her I wanted the day to be good. I also told her I would not be pushed in front of people again. I said if someone wanted me to sign something, they could send it ahead of time. I said I would read it and respond. I said that was the fairest way for everyone. Lila said Orrin's parents believed I was creating stress. I asked her if reading before signing was unreasonable. She did not answer right away. She looked at the table and said she did not know anymore. Then she said she felt like she had to keep everyone happy and that she did not know how to do that. I told her she did not have to keep everyone happy. I told her she only had to make choices she could live with. I told her I would not punish her. I told her I would not embarrass her. I said I would handle things properly and quietly. I did not tell her details. I did not want to frighten her. I just wanted her to stop seeing me as an obstacle. When Lila left, she hugged me quickly and walked away fast, like she was late for something. I watched her go and felt a deep ache. Then I returned to my car and did the next practical step. I drove to my home office and updated my timeline notes. I wrote down the date and what she said. I wrote down the words that sounded like they came from someone else. I saved another set of screenshots. I checked my calendar again. The final walkthrough meeting was coming soon. It was being treated like a simple formality. I could tell they expected me to show up, feel watched, and comply. They still thought I was the kind of man who would fold to keep the peace. I was still calm. I was still quiet. But I was not folding anymore. I was positioning myself where truth and process could stand beside me, so I would not have to shout to be heard. The week of the final walkthrough felt like a slow drumbeat. Every day had one more message about urgency, one more reminder about schedules, one more note about how everyone was counting on me to make things easy. I did not argue with anyone. I did not send long paragraphs. I did not defend myself in the group chat. I kept my replies short, polite, and clear. When someone asked for a quick yes, I answered with one sentence saying I would review first. When someone pushed, I did not explain myself again. I saved the message and moved on. At home, I kept building my structure. I used the same method I use at work when a project gets messy. I separated what was emotional from what was factual. I wrote dates. I saved messages. I listed who said what and when. I kept the wording plain. Nina called me twice that week. Each call was short. She asked for updates. She asked if anyone had tried to change meeting times. She asked if any documents had been sent to me directly. She asked if anyone had tried to isolate me from venue staff. I told her the truth. I told her they were still trying to keep things fast and vague. I told her the pressure was increasing because the wedding date was getting close. I told her I felt like the next meeting would be the moment they tried to lock me into something in front of witnesses. Nina told me to stay calm and stay consistent. She told me the strongest boundary is the one that does not move, even when people push. She told me to keep my language focused on clarity, authorization, and process. She said people like the Pikes are confident until a system stops obeying them. I asked Nina what I should do if they tried to shame me in the room. She told me not to debate. She told me not to defend my character. She told me to repeat simple lines. She said I could say I needed to review before approving. She said I could say I was happy to support what was transparent. She said I could say I would not sign under pressure. She told me that if I stayed calm, their own urgency would start to look suspicious. That night I sat in my home office and practiced a few sentences out loud. I did not do it because I wanted to perform. I did it because nerves can make a person talk too much. I wanted my words to be clean and short when the room got tense. I also prepared my own mind. I reminded myself of what I wanted. I did not want revenge for its own sake. I did not want to ruin my daughter's life. I wanted one simple thing. I wanted respect and transparency. If they could not offer that, then I would not offer access. As the days passed, I noticed something else. The Pikes started acting as if my support was already guaranteed. They spoke about upgrades and additions like they were already approved. They spoke about the budget like it was a shared pot they could reach into. It was strange to watch. It was like they had already written the ending, and they expected me to read my lines. On Wednesday evening, Lila called me again. She asked if we could talk. I told her yes and asked where she wanted to meet. She suggested her apartment. I agreed. When I arrived, Oren was not there. That alone told me she wanted a real conversation. Lila looked tired. Her hair was tied back in a quick way. Her living room was filled with wedding items, boxes, bags, and papers on the table. Everything looked like a life being packed into a single day. She told me Oren's parents were upset. She said they felt I was making them look bad. She said Oren kept saying the wedding would be ruined if I did not cooperate. She said she was being pulled from every side. I listened and nodded. Then I asked her a simple question. I asked if she had seen the paper they tried to get me to sign at the church hall. She hesitated. Then she admitted she had not read it fully. She said Brenda told her it was routine. She said Oren told her it was standard. She said she trusted them because they sounded certain. I told her I understood. I told her certainty can feel like safety, especially when you are stressed. I told her I was not angry at her. I told her my issue was not the wedding itself. My issue was pressure without clarity. Lila asked if I thought Oren was trying to take advantage of me. I chose my words carefully. I told her I thought Oren and his parents were trying to control the process. I told her they were treating my support like an obligation, not a gift. I told her I could not agree to open-ended responsibility. I told her that was not wise, and it was not respectful. She looked down and said she did not want to choose sides. I told her she did not need to choose sides between people. She needed to choose what was right and clear. I told her I wanted her marriage to start with honesty, not pressure. Then she said something that stayed in my mind. She said she was scared that if she pushed back, Oren's parents would reject her. She said she did not want to be seen as difficult. She said she did not want to lose the life they promised her. I told her a promised life that requires you to swallow your voice is not a gift. I did not say it loudly. I said it like a fact. I told her she deserved a partner who could handle questions without turning them into threats. Lila's eyes filled, but she blinked it back. She asked me what I was going to do at the walkthrough. I told her I was going to be calm. I told her I was going to keep things proper. I told her I would not embarrass her. I also told her I would not be pressured. She asked if that meant I would stop paying for the wedding. I did not answer immediately. I looked at her and chose honesty. I told her it meant I would only support what was transparent and agreed in writing. I told her if someone tried to trap me with unclear responsibility, I would step back. I said it would not be dramatic. It would be procedural. She nodded slowly, like she was trying to accept a reality she had avoided. Before I left, I hugged her. She held on for a second longer than usual. That small detail made my chest tighten. It told me she still needed me, even if she was caught in a story that tried to shrink me. The next day, my phone buzzed with an email from the venue. It listed the time for the walkthrough and confirmed the attendees. It used formal language. It also included a note about who had authority to approve changes. I read it twice. I saved it. I printed it. I placed it in my folder. That evening, Nina met me again at the same hotel lobby. She asked how Lila was doing. I told her the truth. I said my daughter was overwhelmed and afraid of conflict. Nina nodded and said that was common. She said pressure works best on people who fear disappointment. Nina reminded me that the walkthrough was not just a meeting, it was a stage. She told me to think about how the room would look. She told me to notice who spoke first, who controlled the agenda, and who tried to rush. She told me to keep my posture relaxed. She said calm is contagious, and so is panic. She told me not to catch their panic. I asked Nina if she would be present. She said she could be nearby, depending on how the venue handled outside support. She told me to keep things within the rules of the location. She said the goal was not a scene, the goal was clarity. When I got home, I laid out everything I needed for the next day. Not on the kitchen table, not where it would feel emotional. I laid it out in my office like a work project. Clean folder, pen, notepad, phone fully charged, backup battery, simple. I slept that night, but not deeply. I woke up once and stared at the ceiling. I thought about Lila walking down the aisle. I thought about how I always imagined that moment. I thought about how strange it was to now feel like I might be a prop in someone else's picture. In the morning, I dressed slowly. I ate a small breakfast, even though I did not feel hungry. I wanted my body steady. I wanted my mind steady. I left the house early. On the drive to the venue, I kept the radio off again. I watched the road. I watched the traffic lights. I breathed slowly. I reminded myself that calm is a choice you keep making, not a mood you wait for. When I pulled into the venue parking lot, I saw other cars already there. I recognized Silas's vehicle. I recognized Oren's. I sat for a moment with my hands on the wheel. Then I picked up my folder and stepped out of the car. Inside the lobby, the air was cool and smelled faintly of flowers. A staff member greeted me and directed me to the conference room. I walked down the hallway at a normal pace. I did not rush. I did not hesitate. When I opened the door, Brenda was already inside, speaking with the venue manager. Silas was looking at his phone. Oren stood beside Lila and spoke to her with a tight smile. Lila looked up when she saw me. For a moment, her face showed relief. Then it tightened again, like she remembered she was in the middle of something. I nodded at everyone, took a seat, and set my folder on the table without opening it. I kept my hands folded in front of me and waited, calm and ready, while they arranged their smiles. The conference room had a long table and a wall screen. There were small bottles of water lined up like someone wanted the meeting to look friendly. Brenda sat close to the venue manager, Ken. Silas sat at the head of the table like he belonged there. Oren stood behind Lila's chair for a moment, then sat beside her and placed his hand near her elbow in a quiet, guiding way. I sat across from them with my folder closed. I kept my hands folded. I did not greet anyone twice. I nodded once and waited. Ken started with a polite overview. He said the purpose of the walkthrough was to confirm the final plan and lock down changes. He said the venue needed clear approvals because changes affected staffing and timing. Brenda smiled and told Ken they were ready to confirm everything. She said the family had agreed and only minor items remained. Silas added that the event had important guests and they wanted the best version. Oren then looked at me and said it was time to finish the last step so everyone could relax. He spoke like he was helping me. I did not respond to his tone. I looked at Ken instead and asked one simple question. I asked who the venue listed as the paying party and who had authority to approve charges. Ken glanced at his tablet. He said the paying party name was mine. He said approvals came from the paying party unless that person gave written authorization to someone else. I nodded and said that was exactly why I needed clarity. I said I was not here to argue feelings. I said I was here to confirm facts and responsibilities. Brenda's smile tightened. She said I was making a simple meeting complicated again. Silas said everyone knew I wanted the wedding to go well, and they needed me to show it in a practical way. Oren said I was slowing down my own daughter's happiness. I kept my voice calm. I told Ken I had received repeated pressure to sign documents without review. I said I would not sign anything under time pressure. I said I had organized records of the pressure and the timeline. Ken's expression changed slightly. He stopped looking like a host and started looking like a manager. He asked what records I meant. I opened my folder for the first time. Inside was a neat stack of pages with dates on top. I slid one page toward Ken. It was a printout of the venue email about attendee list and authorization language. I slid another page that showed meeting notices and the repeated request for a quick signature. Then I slid a short summary page that listed dates and what happened, written in plain words. Brenda leaned forward and said I was being dramatic. I did not respond to her. I asked Ken if he needed proof that I was being pushed to approve things I had not seen. Ken said he needed to understand what risk the venue had. He said if approvals were disputed later, it could become a serious problem. He said the venue protected itself by requiring clear authorization and clear records. I nodded and told him I agreed. Then I did the part that made my stomach tighten again, even though I was prepared. I told Ken there was also an audio call that showed intent. I said it was not a recording made in secret for drama. I said it was a call that reached me and let me hear planning I was not meant to hear. I said the voices discussed pressuring me in front of people and getting my signature quickly so I would not ask questions. Oren's face changed. He said I was twisting things. Brenda said private talk should not be used like this. Silas said none of that mattered and the wedding needed to move forward. Ken raised his hand and said the venue needed to know whether the payer felt coerced. He said coercion could affect the venue's willingness to proceed without stronger safeguards. I took out my phone and played a short portion of the audio. I kept it brief. I did not play it for effect. I played it so Ken could hear the tone and the intent. The room went quiet in a way that felt heavy. Lila's eyes widened. She looked at Oren, then at Brenda, then back to me. Her mouth opened slightly like she wanted to speak, but no words came out. Ken cleared his throat and asked if I was confirming that I did not approve any new charges unless they were sent to me in advance and agreed in writing. I said yes. I said I approved only what was clearly listed and agreed, and only within a defined amount. I said I did not approve open-ended responsibility. I said I would not sign any document that made me responsible for costs I did not control. At that moment, Nina stepped into the room. She did not enter like a performer. She entered like a professional. She introduced herself to Ken and said she represented me for this matter. She placed a sealed envelope on the table and slid it toward Ken. Ken opened it and read quietly for a few seconds. His face stayed controlled, but his posture shifted again. He looked at me and asked if the letter reflected my position. I said yes. I said it confirmed in writing that no one else had authority to approve charges using my name, and that any future charges needed my written approval after review. I said it also requested the venue to place a hold on any upgrades or additions until authorization was confirmed. Brenda said I was humiliating the family. She said I was harming my daughter. Silas said I was trying to control the wedding by controlling money. Oren said I was punishing Lila because I did not like his family. I looked at Lila and spoke gently. I told her this was not punishment. I told her I loved her. I told her I would not embarrass her, and I would not fight with her. I told her I was protecting myself from being trapped into responsibility with no clarity. I told her that if she wanted my support, it would be through transparency and respect. Lila's shoulders dropped. She looked like someone who had been carrying a heavy bag and finally realized it was not hers alone. Ken then spoke in a firm, neutral tone. He said the venue could not proceed with changes under disputed authorization. He said the venue would freeze upgrades immediately. He said if the current payment structure was in question, the venue would require a new agreement with clear payer information before final confirmation. He said the walkthrough could continue only for logistics, not for approvals. Silas started to speak fast, trying to regain control. Ken interrupted politely and said he was following policy. Brenda tried to soften her voice and asked Ken to make an exception for a special event. Ken said the venue did not make exceptions in financial authorization. Oren turned toward Lila and spoke to her in a low voice. Lila pulled back slightly. She did not stand. She did not shout. She simply looked at the table and took a slow breath. Ken asked if the couple intended to take over payments directly. He said if so, he would need their information and a new deposit schedule today. He said if not, the venue could not confirm the current plan. Brenda's face went stiff. Silas looked at his phone like he was searching for a solution. Oren's jaw tightened, and he stared at me like I had broken a rule he believed I should obey. I did not speak again. I had said what needed to be said. The system was now carrying the weight, not my emotions. Ken closed the envelope, stacked the pages, and slid my letter into his folder. He said the meeting was concluded until authorization was resolved. He stood, and the others stood slowly, not because they wanted to, but because the room was no longer theirs to control. I picked up my folder, kept my face calm, and walked out without looking back. Behind me, I heard chairs shift and a phone buzzing on the table, urgent and unanswered.